I was kicked out, face to face, at my own sister's wedding. Not in a hushed conversation, not in some awkward side room. Right there, at the entrance. Guests, flowers, cameras, all watching. The security guy didn't blink. Just looked me straight in the eye and said, "You're not invited." I held up the invitation. My name had been slashed through in thick red ink. No mistake. No misunderstanding. Just rejection, cold and deliberate. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. Didn't make a scene. I stepped back, stood under the old oak tree by the entrance, and stared at the house I grew up in like I'd never seen it before. It was wrapped in roses and silk ribbons, glittering with curated joy. But I wasn't part of that fantasy. It had been 6 years since anyone in that house said my name without venom. I remembered the day my life flipped inside out like it had just happened. My mother, Catherine Grant, standing stiffly at a press podium next to a federal lawyer, her voice shaking with performative grief. "Our family does not support treason. We are devastated." Then there was my sister, Madison. My baby sister. The one I used to share my fries with, sneak snacks to after bedtime. She sat on some glossy morning show couch, wearing a soft white blouse and faux sympathy, telling America, "I don't talk to my sister anymore." She made her choices. I stand by my family. The world applauded her. My silence? That wasn't grace. That was survival. Once, I was Major Lauren Grant. Until the accusation. Leaking classified intel to a foreign entity. It wasn't true, not a word of it, but the media didn't care. And my family? They cut me off before I even had a chance to defend myself. The army stripped my rank. The headlines called me the fallen daughter. And my mother? She told CNN I was a disgrace. Not a single visit. Not one call. They buried me and moved on like I'd never existed, so yeah, I didn't come to the wedding for the flowers or the food. I didn't come to make peace. I came to show them who I became without them. I turned from the gate, walked down the driveway just far enough to be out of sight. No one followed. No one called after me. Then, I slipped off my coat, underneath, my full military uniform. Perfectly pressed. 4 stars on each shoulder, shining in the late afternoon sun. I was now the youngest 4-star general in U.S. history, and they had no idea. After the court-martial, I disappeared. I left behind the uniform, the salutes, the respect. I drove across the country until I ended up in a dusty Montana town where no one asked questions. I rented a room above a mechanic's garage. Worked days cleaning trucks, nights fixing engines. The grease washed off easier than the shame. I didn't look in mirrors much. I didn't want to see the ghost staring back. No calls. No emails. Madison never reached out. My old unit? Silence. One by one, they unfriended me, blocked me, like I was contagious, until one afternoon, I was crouched over a Harley engine when I heard it, combat boots on concrete. A sound so familiar, I thought I imagined it, but then a shadow fell across the garage floor. Colonel Dean Mercer, my former commanding officer. My mentor. The only man who ever pushed me to go further than I thought I could. "You think you're dead?" he asked. I looked up, squinting. "Feels like it." He didn't smile. "I never bought what they said about you. I've got something that needs your kind of silence and skill." I wiped my hands on a rag. "You offering me a job?" "No. I'm offering you redemption." He explained, "Off books, black ops, no uniform, no credit. Missions that didn't exist on paper, the kind of threats the public never heard about." His team was working under direct orders from the Pentagon. No questions asked. No backup. He didn't wait for my answer, but that night, I saw a headline. Madison, arm in arm with a tech mogul named Eric Lawson. The caption? A rising star, military family meets Silicon Valley royalty. She was basking in a spotlight I had earned. Wearing a version of our family name like it was hers to own, I called Dean the next morning and said one word, yes. My first mission, Syria. Hostile territory. No flag. No backup. We were retrieving a mid-tier informant, or so the file said, but when I found the man, he wasn't just some contact. He was a US scientist. And as we hauled him out of the holding cell, he shoved a tiny USB into my hand and whispered, "If I don't make it, don't let this disappear." Back at base, I cracked it open. The first file? Caldwell Systems, confidential, linked to Titan Global Exchange. My breath caught. Eric Lawson, my sister's fiancé, was listed as the CEO of Caldwell Systems, the same man who had cozied up to my family while I was being thrown to the wolves. Was also at the center of a financial web connecting U.S. defense assets to an international syndicate. That's when I realized my downfall hadn't been a mistake, it had been a setup, and I wasn't about to let that go. The heat in Jordan didn't rise in waves, it pressed down on your chest like a judgment. Our base was buried beneath a hill, invisible to satellites and protected by more red tape and encryption than a top-tier CIA asset. It was where I lived now, inside shadows and classified reports. We operated on silence. We existed on trust. After Syria, there was no break. Dean's team deployed me again. And again. High risk, high classification. We hit a compound in northern Afghanistan intercepting rogue drone technology. Cut off a chemical weapon shipment bound for rebel hands in Yemen. Dismantled a shadow finance operation in the Emirates funneling billions through shell charities. I wasn't Lauren anymore. They called me Falcon. No last name. No history, no family, but even while my name disappeared from records, the pain didn't. At night, I couldn't sleep, not because of gunfire. Not even the cold clarity of war, it was the memories of being 17, sitting on the edge of my bed, clutching a Princeton acceptance letter I'd scraped every penny to apply for. I was ready. I had a shot. But that same night, Mom sat across from me at our kitchen table and said, "Honey, we just can't afford 2 private tuitions. Madison's already committed. You'll be fine at state." And I nodded. Because I always nodded. Funny thing about swallowing pain, it doesn't go away, it waits. I started looking into my own case file, quietly, of course. I requested logs, testimony transcripts, chain of custody documents. It didn't take long before the gap screamed at me. The wrong access code had triggered the leak. I remembered the soldier who'd entered that code, Staff Sergeant Miles Keller. He had vanished shortly after the scandal broke. Reassigned, they said. Later, medical discharge. But there was no paper trail. Then one day, I got a visit, Lieutenant Ryan Dalton. We'd served together years ago. Before it all unraveled, he walked straight into my field office. Eyes sunken but sure. "I've been carrying this for years," he said, pulling a flash drive from inside his vest. "Didn't know what to do with it. Until now." The recording was short. Grainy. But crystal clear. Keller's voice. "I didn't have a choice. Lawson's people paid $200,000 to pin it on Lauren. Said it had to come from higher up. I just followed orders." I sat frozen. My hands went numb. I listened again. Then again. It didn't feel real, but it was. I wasn't just collateral damage. I was a target, and my own family had never once asked if I'd actually done it. The next morning, Dean called me into his office. "They approved it," he said simply. "Approved what?" He slid a folder across the desk. Inside, a stamped memo from the Joint Chiefs. Top line, General Officer Appointment, Lauren M. Grant, United States Army, Grade 010, 4 stars. Official. Immediate, but that wasn't what made my heart stop. Dean handed me another envelope, thick. Fancy. Ivory paper, gold trim, an invitation. "Madison Eric request the honor of your absence." My name was printed, then manually scratched out with red ink. Just like the copy at the wedding gate, scrawled beneath it in cursive, "No need to come." They had no idea what was coming. The wedding was set for the following weekend in the Hamptons. I flew in on a military jet that landed at a private airfield. I didn't notify anyone. Didn't ask for a seat. I didn't need their permission. I wasn't there for celebration, I was there to burn it all down. I arrived just as the sun dipped behind the hedges. Light filtered through manicured oaks. Music drifted from the garden, a string quartet playing something expensive and hollow. No coat this time, just my full dress uniform, 4 stars on each shoulder. Hair pinned back, regulation tight. Boots polished to mirror shine. I walked straight up the driveway. The guards saw me and froze. This time, no one told me to stop, they just stepped aside. The garden was all pastels and champagne bubbles. Guests sipped and murmured, "Too wealthy to be curious." Then they saw me. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Someone dropped a glass, and there, across the lawn, stood my mother, Catherine Grant, in navy silk, brooch gleaming at her collarbone. When her eyes met mine, she turned pale. She took a step forward. "Lauren?" "Hi, Mom," I said. "Lovely party." Madison turned too. She looked beautiful, of course. Hair curled in soft waves. Dress like a Vogue cover. The moment she saw me, her expression twisted. Her mouth opened. But her hands, those clenched into fists. Eric stood beside her. Crisp tucks. Cool demeanor. Until he saw the silver stars. Then his eyes widened. I turned to a photographer nearby. "You might want to get this shot," I said with a smile. It's not every day a 4-star general crashes her own sister's wedding. Cameras clicked, guests whispered. Madison grabbed Mom's arm and pulled her toward the reception tent, but I raised my hand. "Before you go," I said, voice calm, "I brought a gift." From my pocket, I pulled a USB. Black. Slim. "Deadly, this contains a statement from Lieutenant Dalton," I said. "As well as a confession from Staff Sergeant Keller. Paid off, quite generously, by Lawson Holdings to frame me." Eric's face went chalk white. Phones were out now. Recording. Whispering turned into gasps. Madison stepped forward, her voice cracking. "Don't believe her. She's always been unstable." I tilted my head. "Is that what Eric said in his apology email to me? Because I still have it. Timestamped. Signed." That got attention. A man in a tux stepped forward. "I represent several investors in Lawson Holdings," he said cautiously. "Are these allegations real?" Eric didn't speak. Madison grabbed his arm. "We need a lawyer. Now." I turned to my mother. She hadn't moved. Her glass was shaking. "I don't need your apology," I said. "But I need you to know, I survived. And I outranked every lie you tried to bury me with." To Madison, I added, "It's still your wedding day. Finish it however you want. But the truth? That's mine now." Then I turned and walked away. This time, they didn't look away, they watched. For the first time in years, they saw me, back in the black government SUV parked 2 streets away. I peeled off my jacket and laid it carefully on the seat beside me. The 4 stars shimmered faintly under the overhead light, quiet now. But louder than 1,000 headlines. I opened the glove box and pulled out my encrypted laptop. There, in a folder titled Falcon Ops, was everything: intel reports, debrief transcripts, blacked out memos that led to real-world firestorms, and one folder I'd barely touched. It was labeled personal. I opened it. Bank transfers. 6 years of financial documents. One wire caught my eye. Department of Defense Educational Assistance Fund to a private scholarship account under the name M. Grant Education Trust. The recipient, Madison Grant. The application had my name. My service ID. My forged signature. I stared at it for a long time. The money was supposed to be for fallen or disabled military dependents. It had never reached me. I'd never applied for it. My mother had used my identity to send Madison to school, on aid meant to honor sacrifice, and they still called me a disgrace. I opened the next file. A photo. Low-res, but clear enough, 3 people in a modern glass office. Madison. Eric. And a third man. I zoomed in, Sergeant Keller, the same man who vanished after entering the wrong code, now Director of Special Operations at Lawson Holdings. I tasted bile. He wasn't reassigned. Wasn't discharged. He'd been hired, bought, probably, by Eric. Everything about my downfall had been orchestrated. I called Ryan Dalton. You still have the original file? I asked. Yeah. He said. Uncut. Full version. Would you be willing to testify? A beat of silence. Then, if it clears your name? Yeah. I will. I leaned back. Somewhere down the road, the wedding fireworks cracked into the night sky, bright, loud, meaningless. I opened a hidden channel on my laptop. An old military email account, scrubbed but not dead, one unread message, sent years ago. Lauren, don't take the March assignment. It's a setup. James Dean. I stared at the screen. I called him. You send it? I asked. His voice was quiet. I did. But your inbox had already been compromised. I didn't realize it bounced back until after your hearing. He paused. I failed you. I should have pushed harder. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me, but James wasn't done. I've handed everything over to the FBI, he said. Full cooperation. They're coming tonight. I closed my laptop slowly, and then I did what I hadn't done in years. I walked back into that estate, not through the front gates, but through the east garden. Same path I used as a teenager to sneak out when I needed air. The scent of rosemary still clung to the hedges. But everything else was foreign. Colder. Smaller. Inside the house, it was mostly empty. The music had died. The guests had left. I found Mom sitting alone in the old reading room, swirling brandy in a crystal glass. She didn't look up when I entered. What do you want? She asked flatly. An honest answer, I said. Why didn't you ever ask me if I did it? She stared at the glass. Because I didn't want to know. I pulled a folded document from my pocket and laid it on the side table, the 2012 military aid transfer with my forged signature. You used my name, I said. Her eyes didn't move. Madison needed it more, she whispered. You were always steel. She wasn't. I swallowed hard. So when I fell, you didn't even blink? Mom finally looked at me. When Eric showed us the footage, she said, we thought cutting you off would protect the family name. We didn't think you'd survive it. Did Madison know? She hesitated. Yes, she said quietly. She knew it wasn't true. I didn't say another word. I left. My legs moved like they remembered how to leave disappointment behind. I found Madison in the front hall, barefoot, heels tossed aside, hair unraveling. She turned when she saw me. You came back to ruin my wedding? She spat. No, I said. I came back for the truth. She laughed, dry and cracked. You've always loved being the victim. The noble one. Do you know what it was like living in your shadow? I never tried to compete. That's the worst part, she snapped. You didn't have to. People just loved you. And that's why you let them destroy me? Her voice softened. When Eric showed me the plan, I told myself it would be temporary. That it would blow over. But then, you vanished. And everything got easier. I stared at her. Did you know I nearly took my own life that year? She froze. What? I sat in a motel room outside Boise with a bottle of pills. The only thing that stopped me was a knock on the door. Some stranger's mistake. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't think it was that bad. You didn't want to know, I said. Just like Mom. We stood in silence. Not as sisters, but as the aftermath of something too broken to fix. Then I turned and walked out. Back at the car, I pulled up everything I had: Ryan's audio files, the forged documents, the apology email from Eric, the redacted memo from Dean. All of it. I encrypted the folder and gave it a name that felt like truth finally spoken: Redemption. I called Dean. You said the FBI was coming? They'll be there at 10:15 sharp, he confirmed. But there's one thing left. You have to pull Eric aside. Make sure they get him first. Copy that. I slid the laptop into my briefcase and stepped into the night. The estate didn't look like a monument anymore. It looked like a crime scene waiting to happen. I found Eric near the bar inside the reception tent. He was laughing with a few of his groomsmen, Scotch glass in hand, like nothing in the world could touch him. I walked straight up behind him and said, quietly, "We need to talk. Privately." He turned, clearly annoyed. "This again? Can't you just, it's not a request." There was something in my tone that made him straighten. He followed me, muttering a half-assed excuse to his friends. I led him to the old greenhouse on the edge of the property, the one Madison and I used to sneak into as kids to plant mint and pretend we were witches brewing potions. It was quiet now. Dim, just a single light glowing above the door. He stepped in first. I closed the door behind us. Eric crossed his arms. "What is this, Lauren? Another monologue?" "No," I said. "Just a conversation. One where you finally see me, not the headline you helped create." "Me?" He scoffed. "You think any of this will stick? It's your word against mine." I tapped my phone. A blinking red light. Recording. Then I looked him dead in the eye. "Go on. Tell me how it won't hold." He smirked, arrogant as ever. "You know what's funny? I never thought that wire transfer would get flagged so fast. Should have pushed it through Dubai first." Then he froze. He realized. I smiled, slow, calm, cold. "Thanks," I said. "That's all I needed." I reached up and unpinned the small silver eagle badge from my lapel. It blinked blue. A live feed. Everything he said, streamed in real time. That's when we heard it: sirens. Not in the distance. Close. Fast. With purpose. 2 black SUVs pulled into the driveway. Men and women in navy jackets with bright yellow letters stepped out with military precision. FBI. Eric bolted, but he didn't get far. Agents swarmed from every angle, moving with clockwork efficiency. In seconds, he was face down on the lawn, wrists zip-tied, shouting about lawyers and conspiracies as the guests screamed. Phones came out. Everyone recording. Champagne glasses dropped like hail, and there I was, standing at the edge of the chaos in full uniform, arms crossed. A tall agent approached, lean, square jaw, sharp eyes under a familiar brow. "General Grant?" he asked. I looked at him, squinting. "Petty Officer Langston?" I said. He grinned. "Didn't think I'd see you again. Outside the sandbox, anyway." "Likewise." He nodded toward Eric. "We've got him. We've got it all. You did good." I turned back toward the estate. Madison stood frozen near the staircase, one hand gripping the banister like it might keep the world from spinning. Her veil had slipped to one side. Her mascara was smeared. She looked like a statue in a war zone. My mother, Catherine, stood behind her. Lips pressed into a thin line. Her pearls clenched so tight in her hand I thought they might snap. I didn't smile. I didn't speak. Because this moment didn't need words. I had already won. After Eric was dragged away, the wedding didn't just unravel. It evaporated. The music stopped mid-note. The caterers stood paralyzed beside untouched trays. Guests whispered. Some left. Others just stood there, still recording, unsure what to do with their hands or their disbelief. I walked back inside the hall, shoulders straight, head high. People parted like I was Moses walking through the Red Sea of entitlement. By the dessert table, a woman whispered, "That's her, right?" Someone else muttered, "General Grant. I saw her on the news once." Thought she was dead? I offered as I passed. A few older men in suits approached, former officers, based on the way they held their posture like it was armor. One extended a hand. "I've read your mission logs. Never thought I'd meet you in person." I shook it. "I wish it were under better circumstances." "You brought the truth," he said simply. "And that matters." I nodded and kept walking. Behind them, I spotted Madison, alone now, standing by the wedding cake, holding one of her heels like a broken glass slipper. Her face was blank. Hollow. My mother hadn't moved from her corner. I stopped in front of them both, didn't raise my voice. "Didn't need to, Mom," I said, my tone like ice under steel. "I don't need you to love me. I don't even need your apology. But I need you to see me. Now. Not as the daughter you erased, but as the woman who lived through everything you refused to ask about." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Tears welled in her eyes, but she still didn't speak. Madison stepped forward, barely a whisper. "Are you leaving?" "I am." Her voice cracked. "Will I ever hear from you again?" "I didn't come here to punish you," I said. "You made your choices. I just exposed them. Now you get to live with the echo of every lie you helped protect." I turned, walked away. The crowd didn't move. Just watched me go. At the front door, I heard a soft voice behind me. "Excuse me," it said. I turned. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8, stood by the entryway gripping the hem of her party dress. "I saw you earlier," she said, blinking up at me. "I want to be like you when I grow up." I knelt so we were eye level. "No," I said gently, "you be better." Then I reached up, unclipped one of the 4 stars from my shoulder, and placed it carefully into her palm. She held it like treasure. I stood, nodded once, and walked into the night, this time, to remember what they did to it. Then, Dean called. He met me on a trail just outside Monterey, where the trees smelled like pine and salt and the wind sounded like freedom. He handed me a classified file. Eric Lawson had confessed to everything. International laundering. Bribery. False records. He even gave up names, people deep in the system. "We want you to lead the response," Dean said. "We're calling it Operation Scorpion. Clean house. From the inside out." I looked at him. "If I say yes, I get to run it my way." He met my eyes. "You're not a soldier anymore, Lauren. You're the commander." 1 month later, I stood on a coastal bluff in Northern California, staring out over the Pacific. This place mattered. It was where I had completed my very first field exercise as a junior officer, before the scandal, before the stars, before everything collapsed. The wind ripped through my coat as I opened a small wooden box. Inside were my 4 silver stars. I held them one by one. They weren't just ranks, they were memories. Wounds. Survival, each one earned twice over, once in battle, and again in silence. I thought of my mother. Maybe she was watching the news. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe she still clung to her own version of the truth. I didn't need to know anymore. I thought of Madison. Of what she'd lost, and what she finally admitted. I didn't know if she had truly changed. But I believed she understood something now. It's not power, or applause, or image that matters, it's the person you face in the mirror. I placed the stars back in the box. I didn't bury it. I didn't set it on fire, I just let the wind take what it wanted. Then my phone buzzed. A secure message from the Department of Defense lit up my screen. Operation Scorpion approved. Requesting lead command, General Grant, ready? I didn't answer right away. I looked out at the waves. At the horizon, there was no one left to silence me, no lies left to outrun, no need to prove anything anymore. I was already living it. I turned back toward my Jeep. Got in. Turned the key. The GPS blinked to life. next objective, classified. And I didn't look back, I didn't have to, because this time I wasn't someone they could erase, not anymore. If you'd made it this far, thank you. Truly. If you've ever been called something you knew you weren't. If you've ever stood in a room full of people who were supposed to love you, and they didn't. And you kept walking anyway, you're not alone. Say yes in the comments. Share your story, or sit quietly with mine for a while. Either way, healing starts here. Until next time, take care of your heart, and remember, being seen, even by strangers, can be the beginning of coming home to yourself.